Hello, and welcome to Getting Started with Reports in Soluno. In this video, we'll go over how to run reports. We'll also cover some of the reports that are more popular and that are probably used the most often in the Soluno software. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at reports. Access reports in Soluno, you want to click on the Views and Reports icon in the main toolbar. From here, we will group reports into specific topics. We'll have reports for your banking, for contacts, your receivables, your payables, productivity reports, and other reports that didn't fit the other categories. Now, the screen I'm looking at currently, if you have not run a report before in Soluno, this is kind of what you're going to see the first time you go to run a report. It'll just be a blank white screen. And then what you'll see is a drop down here, and this is where you'll start to run your report. So the first time you run a report, it'll just be a big blank white screen. That's normal. If you have run reports before, then you'll see something more like this, which will actually show you the last report you ran. And then up here in the upper right, it'll tell you approximately when that report was generated. So in this case, I generated it within the past hour. If you want to know exactly when it was generated, if you hover your mouse over that section, it'll actually tell you I ran this at 1:27 p.m. on July 26th. Most of the reports will allow you to refresh them by clicking the refresh icon. If you want to rerun this report with all the same parameters that you'd already run it before just to see updates, just click the refresh button and we'll rerun the report with all the parameters you had set previously. Also, a lot of people run the reports to the screen, which I just did, of course. But if you want a hard copy, you can always export the reports out into either an Excel format, a CSV format, or a PDF format. The last option, PDF attachment, what it will do is it will go through our reports and look for any line items that have this blue attachment icon. And instead of you having to print each attachment separately by clicking the blue icon for each piece of data you want to reprint as a PDF, the PDF attachment button will go through the existing report, pull together all those attachments, and put them in one giant PDF for you, thereby saving time and not having to click on each one of these and generating them one at a time. Also, when you run a report, you'll see a couple additional icons here. The first icon is our drill down icon. That lets you actually get into the transaction so you can see the transaction or make edits to it. So if I want to see this transaction, I can click on the drill down. It will take me to that particular transaction. And depending on how old the transaction is, I can probably make updates to it. So if this one was actually supposed to be 3,500, I update the amount, click save, and now I've updated that transaction. Now I don't see the update here until I actually refresh the screen. And again, sometimes that refresh button may disappear. So I can just go in and rerun the report, and I will come back to those parameters in a second. Sometimes you can also delete transactions. Again, depending on if the transaction, for example, is a check that has been reconciled in a bank account, you won't see the delete icon because we will not let you delete a check that has already been reconciled. So if you don't see the trash can icon, that transaction is somehow locked down in Soluno, and you'd have to backtrack to see how you can free it up to delete a transaction. But let's go ahead now and take a look at the different reports available in Soluno, and the ones that are most widely used, and how to run a report in the system. So we'll go ahead and we'll start with the first tab, which is banking. And then usually under the main heading, you'll see another series of tabs that break it down a little bit more. So under banking, we have our operating bank reports, our trust bank reports, transfer reports, and if you're in Alberta, you'll also see the trust safety report if you've configured trust safety. go back to the operating bank, and to run a report in Soluno, just click the down arrow. And the first thing to do is select the view. The view is essentially the report you want to run. For those of you who want to run a general bank journal, in Soluno, that's the operating bank journal, the OP view. Select that. And now once you've selected the view, you can select your parameters. And the parameters will vary from section to section. But generally, you'll be able to have entering date ranges like start and end dates. For bank account reports, you can narrow it down by a particular bank account. In this case, one of my operating accounts. If I leave it blank, I can run the report for all my accounts. You'll just basically see you can set different parameters to get the data you're looking for. And again, parameters will differ for each report type. So if I leave this as is, it'll run for all my operating bank transactions for all my operating bank accounts. So that's why you do want to use the parameters to narrow down your search results. So in this case, if I just want to see the month of June, I can put the start date of June 1st, the end date of June 30th, and then select maybe I just want to see the transactions from my operating account. Maybe I'm just looking if I have any amounts over a dollar amount, like I'm looking for any flowing of funds of $5,000 or more. And I really just want to see those funds that have flowed out of the account. So I can basically say, let's look in June in my operating account and see if we cut any checks or transferred any money, $5,000 or more, out of the account. And then I can even narrow it down by payment method. But in this case, I want to see everything and see why we've paid more than $5,000 out of the operating account. And then click play to run the report with those parameters. In this case, it looks like I paid the receiver general on June 30th for $16,000. Now, one of the nice things about Soluno is if that's kind of report you want to run on a regular basis, maybe the dates will change, but you always want to see those flows of funds that are $5,000 or more out of the system. Well, I could blank those dates out, set everything else the way I'd like it, where all I have to do is update the date whenever I want to run this report. And in the bottom right, I can save the view. So I give the view a name. I can't use an existing name. So we'll just say this is op2. And then the description might be $5,000 or more out of bank. However you want to name it to tell you what this view is for. In this case, I'm looking for transactions of $5,000 or more out of my bank account. And if I want other users to be able to access and run this view, I can make the view public so other users can also run the new view that I'm creating. Or if it's just for me, then I can go ahead and tag this button and only I will see it when I'm logged in. And then click OK. And now I've got this new view, op2, that's 5,000 or more out of the bank. Now, anytime I want to run that, I click the down arrow, choose that view, and now all I really need to do is plug in my dates. Maybe I want to see if I did any transactions in May. And now run that report. And it looks like, nope, in May, I didn't have anything out more than $5,000 come out of my operating account. All of the reports will allow you to save a view. If you no longer need the view, just highlight it and you'll see a trash can icon next to it to delete that view. The nice thing is, our normal views, you can't delete. You'll see the trash can is grayed out. You can't delete the standard views that come with Soluno, so you don't have to worry about accidentally deleting one of our standard reports. Those are the different ways basically to run a report, and then you just have to remember to set your parameters. At this point, I'm going to take a look at some of the more commonly used reports. Under the Trust tab, you're probably going to want to run your Trust Bank Journal. So click the down arrow, and for the Trust Bank Journal, we have the View of Trust Bank Journal. For those of you that do transfers between accounts, I click the down arrow. The most commonly used one is the Transfer Journal. So it's just called Transfer. This will show you all the different types of transfers, from trust to trust, from trust to operating, operating to trust, etc. But we also can break it down to those specific type of transactions if that's what you're looking for. Again, the trust safety is for those people in Alberta who need to file their trust safety with the Law Society. You should see this tab. If you're not in Alberta, you won't see the tab because it's not required in your province, and it's definitely not required here in the US. The Contact tab. The Contact tab actually has a lot of reports that people like to run. We just break them up into two sections, the Contact section and the Ledger section. The Contact section just has a lot of different reports to run on your contacts. So if you want a list of your files, contacts, etc., a list of your vendors, you'll see those views here. Majority of people are here probably for the Ledger tab. On the Ledger tab, there are numerous reports that people like to run. So taking a look at the ones used most often, if I go to the view, we have, for example, the Client Ledger. If you want to see all the transactions for a client, money in, money out, invoices, etc., the Client Ledger is one of the best reports you can run. You can see the parameters here are much more varied than the parameters we saw in the bank journals. But we can narrow it down to a specific file, a contact and all their associated files, a responsible attorney. There's a lot of different ways to break down the data you're going to get in these reports. So one of the first things you should do is kind of scroll down and look at the different parameters available, because parameters will make a big difference on the data that you're going to get back in the report. Especially if you run a report and another colleague runs that same report and you notice the totals don't match, one of the first things I would suggest is, well, did you both run the report with the same parameters? Because just one parameter being different can give you different totals. So always check the parameters if you're comparing reports with a colleague. So the Client Ledger is a good report to get data about your clients. Of course, we have the Client Trust Ledger. So those of you who have to track trust money on your clients, this is where you can get that information from the Trust Ledger. Added a bunch of top client reports, one of our latest updates as of the time of this recording. Back that name out. This is also where you can find your WIP information, usually the work in progress detailed. So those of you who are looking for WIP reports, we have a few, but the work in progress detailed is the most commonly used report. And the summary report, client summary all files, is another useful report that a lot of our law firms like to run. Now, sometimes if you've run a report, especially a report like the Ledger, where there's a lot of different views, so just run that trust listing report real quick. And you go back and you want to choose a different report. You may not always see all the reports available. So if you don't see everything you're looking for, back out of the listing. That will usually open up all the report views that are available. Or just start typing in, like if I'm looking for WIP, just start typing in WIP to narrow it down to those WIP views. Also, just as a troubleshooting tip, sometimes when you run a report, you may accidentally have left like a contact or a file in there and it remembers it from last time and pulls it in and then narrows down the scope of your report. So always, if the report doesn't look right, check the parameters. It might have a parameter that it remembered from the last time you ran the report and it didn't get cleared yet. After the ledger reports, let's take a look at receivables. So for receivables, some of the more popular reports here. Under the receivables tab, the down arrow, of course, is your receivables by client. So you can see what's outstanding and what's owed you. If you're looking for your billings, that would be the billings journal. This is a very good report anytime you want to check on your invoices. I'll quick run this so you can see it. So we can see the invoice, we can see the hours on it, what's paid off that invoice, what's still owing, the age of the invoice. I'm looking at all mine, so I have to go down a little bit lower to see. So these are all less than 30 days owing. And down below, some nice little summary totals. A lot of the reports will have summary totals at the bottom, so do make sure you scroll all the way down in a report to check out what summary totals we may have for you. But these are the different reports we have for receivables. Yeah, we have some top client reports that are new as of this recording. Under the adjustment tab, for those of you who want to look for your write-up, write-downs, under adjustments, you can find that here as the adjustment listing. These will be your write-ups and write-downs. And a few other ways to see the adjustments, but the adjustment listing will be your write-up and write-downs. And of course, payments. And under this one, payment allocation is another good report to run to see how the payments got allocated out. On the payables tab, you've got your payables. Here's where you can see your overdue payables or just get your payable listing. And then we have a few other ones as well. Payments for your payables. So just the payment listing, see the payments you've made on your payables. Your vendor ledger. And then your cash flow. This is your payable cash flow. Productivity reports. So for all those who you want to track how your timekeepers are doing, under the lawyer tab, you have your billing productivity, time entered, time responsible, time by working, etc. So to check the productivity of your timekeepers, these are the reports you want to run. And again, one of our newer reports is the billing realization report. You do it by client, by file, by responsible, or by working lawyer. Under the other tab, you've got your time reports. So you want to put out a time listing or your daily time listing. Under expense, here you're going to find your client expense journal, otherwise known as our client cost listing in Soluno. So you can see all the different costs for your clients. The transaction levy, this is for Ontario clients. You won't see it unless you've got it turned on in Ontario. This is the transaction levy for Newfoundland. You'll only see that, of course, if you're turned it on there. The trust administration fee, you will only see this tab if you've got turned on for British Columbia. The audit trail, another good report if you want to track who's been making changes in your system. So run your audit trail report. And what you want to normally do, so you don't see every little change, is after you choose which view of the audit trail you'd like to see. Down below where it says journal source, you can tell us what kind of transactions you're looking for. Are you looking for changes to your trust, to your operating, to receivables, to payables? That way you don't have to look at every transaction. You can run it by type of transaction to see who's been making the changes in the system. For Canada, of course, the GST HST report, and also the sales tax report for Canada. Normally, PST is here. If you're a US firm, let me switch to the US books really quickly. You'll have one additional tab just for the US. Under Views and Reports and Payables, you will have a place to print your 1099 forms. We don't print the form itself, we print on the 1099 form. So those are the different views and reports in Soluno. I highly recommend you look at least the ones I mentioned that are used quite a bit, but look at them all. See which reports will work best for your firm. Now, there is one more set of reports, and of course, those are your financial reports. Those are stored separately under the Financials icon. So here is where you can run your general ledger, your balance sheet, your trial balance, and your profit and loss, otherwise known in some places as the income statement. This is also where you can run a general journal. The general journal will allow you to see all the manual journal entries that have been made into Soluno. These are all the different reports that are available in Soluno, where to find them, how to run them. Make sure you check the parameters. That will affect the data you get back. A couple that I would like to point out real quick as we get towards the end. I go back to Views and Reports, Receivables. Let me run an AR report. For those of you that do provincial write-offs, those write-offs will still show up as AR when you run the AR report with the default settings. So do make sure, if you do not want to see your provisional write-offs in your AR, that you choose this bottom option, Treat Provisional Write-offs as Finalized. That will not include those provisional write-offs in your AR totals for your client. The other thing you want to check in some reports is you may put a cutoff date here. Let's say I do a cutoff date of June 30th. It's still going to show your balances as of the current date instead of your cutoff end date. If you wanted your balances as of the end date that you selected, make sure if you see this balances as of, you change it because it's going to be defaulting to the current date. You want to choose end date so that it looks at this end date for your balances. That's another issue that sometimes can cause problems with your reporting and why your numbers might look off. So always check the parameters. If you would like a list of the reports we recommend that you run, please go out to our website at soluno.legal. If you go to Resources and Training Hub, go to the How-To Documents tab, and go to Reporting. We do have a PDF of the recommended end-of-month reports for our Canadian clients and a PDF of the recommended end-of-month reports for our US clients. You can download those at any time, and they will list the reports that I covered in this video. So that is your introduction to reporting in Soluno. If you have any questions, you can always email us here at training@soluno.legal. Or again, visit our website, as I just showed you, at soluno.legal under Resources and Training Hub. It'll have those training documents, but it also has recorded videos such as this, our live webinar classes that you can sign up for, and many videos that deal with specific topics. I hope you found this class helpful, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.